My dad was a great dad. He was loving, ornery, compassionate, stubborn, highly intelligent, hard headed, hilarious, foul mouthed, and supportive. He cried at movies and commercials. We once went to see Mr. Holland's Opus and he cried through the whole thing, and now I do the same. He wrote poetry with words like turgid and corpulent. He painted beautiful pictures of lighthouses, my sister, landscapes, and a beautiful portrait of a farmer resting against the side of a barn after a hard day's work. That painting was accepted into an art exhibit, for which he was very proud. He loved to write, and did so with great talent and an extensive vocabulary. Everything from helping me to write my salutatorian speech in high school, to his PhD dissertation in psychology at IU, to his incredible Rager family history he had printed and bound for Whitney and me after spending so much of his last years researching our family line. He loved to play Jeopardy, but not Wheel. He loved crackers and cheese and peanut M&Ms. He loved afternoon naps. He loved our bulldogs, Pikey, Tiger, and Rowdy, and all the dogs in between, but not so much cats. He loved to sit at a dinner table with friends and make inappropriate jokes with laughter that made the whole house shake. He loved being a part of Rotary. He loved working at the go-kart races. He loved working on parade floats and yelling at political candidates in the parade he didn't agree with, alongside a pitcher full of well-fruited sangria. He loved the Colts and Florida State. He loved to garden and eat fresh tomatoes on home-grilled cheeseburgers. He loved my mom. He loved his children, including my half-brother Eric. He loved his grandchildren even more. He loved to ride his bicycle. So many people remember him riding his bicycle around the park in Linton. And his motorcycle. He loved the beach. He loved to swim. He loved to camp and cook pancakes in bacon grease. He loved to take his family to historic landmarks like Gettysburg and the North Bridge. He loved to connect with old friends, teammates, classmates, army buddies, and extended family. He loved PBS, Nova, and Masterpiece Theater. He loved Turner Classic Movies. He loved Breaking Bad and The Sopranos. He was not without his flaws. He would not have wanted me to tell you only about the good things. He never had a dad. His dad died when he was only 6 months old in a tragic accident, cleaning out a ship in Louisville on the Ohio River. Died of carbon monoxide poisoning. Perhaps as a result, he sometimes pushed too hard. Walking home from my 6th grade football game due to my poor performance, terrifying me into a batting average approaching zero by furiously pointing at his eyes as I walked to the plate each time to remind me to keep my eye on the ball. Didn't work so well. Paying Whitney and me money for committing fouls in basketball to foster aggressiveness. That one did work. Getting into a verbal altercation with my high school football coach during a game. It was for a good reason. But even in these moments, whether well applied or not, his heart was always in the right place. My dad was in the Army as a volunteer in the Big Red One. He was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, and hated every second of it. He spoke about, being out, how incredibly cold, just to the bone cold. And, he used to drive a truck, and there was a manual there, and he burned it in his helmet. He always said how that was a court-martialable offense, but just a little bit of heat for the night. He was stationed in Berlin, Germany, and he loved every second of it. He tested well and worked on a secret project called the Davy Crockett, a small nuclear weapon that could be shot like a mortar as a last stand against an overwhelming invasion. It's pretty crazy. Look it up. He had constant trouble with his commanding officers, with which he often disagreed. He was raised by his mother Lois, but more so by his aunts, of which he always spoke so fondly, and he always compared them favorably to my wife Tara. He spoke of them as being strong, independent women who showed great compassion for the people in their community. He grew up surrounded by racism in southern Indiana, but for him, he said it never made sense. He had such a love for humanity and of doing good. He had a deep appreciation for psychology and what made people tick. He had a way of connecting, empathizing, and understanding almost anyone. He had a special passion for those that society had wronged or left behind. He and my mom taught or worked in special education for 40 years. When I learned of his passing, I was in Virginia for a conference for work, which is also where I was born. When I was born, my parents ran a school on a farm in Virginia for deeply emotionally disturbed children who had difficulty being in normal schools. He loved those children and spoke of them very fondly. He had a horse named Thunderbolt that sounded as hard-headed as he was. His favorite part of his career was advocating for children and families in very tough circumstances, always doing everything he could to ensure every child received an equitable education to the best of their abilities. His employees, of which my mom was one, loved him. Those he had to go to battle with on behalf of the children under his care, perhaps less so, but they all respected him. He always held the opinion of himself that he had a hard time making and keeping friends because of his raw, outspoken manner. I never found that to be the case, which is reinforced by hearing from all the folks that checked in after his passing. He always wanted his ashes spread in Briny Breezes, Florida, where he lived at one point. Some years ago, my dear friends Jared Albright, Nate Austin, myself, and my dad drove from Dad's house in Port St. Lucie, Florida, to Miami, Florida for the day during a road trip of Jared, Nate, and mine. On the way back, Dad took us by the place he wanted his ashes spread, but as we all remember fondly, he took the long way, along A1A and 1, and I had long since fallen asleep by the time we got to that place. By some stroke of cosmic synchronicity, when I met my wife Tara, she lived exactly 1 mile due west of my dad's requested final resting place, in the very city in which he went to high school, so now I'll never forget. He loved his grandchildren, Audrina, Cameron, and Lily, most of all. He and my mom helped me raise Audrina when I was a single father. Towards the end, nothing made him happier than watching Cameron play with his trucks, or sitting on his chest, or talking to Cameron and answering as many questions about the world. And as I wrote this, I realized that so much of this describes me. As I've grown older, I've seen so much of him in myself. And for that, I'm truly thankful. Love you, Dad.